Okay, I'm going to start sharing my slides now as well so that you can see the information. I always struggle doing talking and driving at the same time with this. Make sure I've got all my windows open that I need to see. Okay, I'm going to make sure the chat window is visible so I can see if any comments you've got in there. And again, I'll keep admitting people in. So while we just, in the beginning, I'll just do the little bit of housekeeping. Thank you for everyone that's joining. Thank you for those that are watching the recording. If you have any questions along the way, please drop them in the chat. Because it is a large group, I may not be able to open up the mic and have a conversation. I do normally like to do that in my training, but we are a pretty big group today, so it's probably easier if you pop things in the chat. Please feel free to make a comment, have a joke, chat amongst yourselves. I'd really love for you to keep the conversation going in the chat, and you can ask any questions as we go. Just letting some more people coming in. Make sure you got a pen and paper because you will want to take notes today. I'm going to go through quite a bit of information where you want to remember some of the stuff I'm sharing with you. So I will plan to go for about an hour. For those of you watching this in replay, does mean that you can speed up the replay a little bit if you want. Make me speak a little bit faster. Please feel free to ask me how to do that if you want to know how to do that. But if you're watching the replay, you can also send me some questions if you want to. So to get your fingers warmed up, for those that are on the live, how about you pop into the chat where you are joining us from? It's always fun, I think, when you're on webinars to see where people are coming in from around Australia, around the world. And I would love to hear from you if you feel comfortable and safe to do so. What inspired you to join this webinar today? You may want to say that you're dealing with a not so pleasant person at work, or maybe you just want to develop your skills. Maybe you want to learn from past experiences. So if you feel safe to do so, pop it in. Otherwise, just share where you're coming from. Good on you, Cecilia. Cecilia is going to be doing stay tuned with Cecilia. Cecilia's going to be doing some amazing work with us as well. So you'll see more of her coming up as well. Thanks for all of you that are joining. We're only just getting started. We're just sharing in the chat where we're coming from and what we want to get out of today. I know there's going to be quite a few people from Darwin and CDU. It's lovely to see you here, and I'm looking forward to doing some more work with you. Brisbane. Great to see you from Brisbane, Adam. Caroline's in Alice Springs. Awesome. Lovely to have you here. Okay. Anyone who's who's been participated in this training with me before will have seen this before. So apologies for the repetition, but I always like to start training with an understanding about the scope of what you need to deal with in your working life. So just a bit of a refresher, and I'll be brief to go through this model with you. Keep typing in the chat, by the way. You're more than welcome to keep typing. What we're going to be talking about today is going to be dealing with resilience, how you can roll with the punches. And I don't mean physical punches today. I'm talking about verbal punches, and verbal punches hurt. They do hurt. They do impact upon us. And how to manage the stress that may be a side effect of dealing with difficult people. Difficult people are stressful. They're really stressful. They cause a lot of stress for us. So this is about how we can manage the stress, be more resilient in dealing with these people. But we're also going to be looking at communication and also going to be talking about well-being. This is about not just your physical well-being, but it's your mental, emotional, spiritual well-being as well. And the point of me showing you this is that all of these things impact upon each other. And when one thing is really hitting us, it's going to impact on all those other things. And I always like to reference this because we only have an hour today, or just over an hour, to be able to go through all of this content. As I mentioned earlier, the last probably 15 to 20 minutes is really about me being able to share some resources with you and answer any questions. But the guts of value that you're going to get is through the first hour. Do hang around though, because I'm going to be sharing lots of free resources with you. So once again, what we observe when people are not functioning well, when all of those things are impacting upon you, this is what people come to me with. If you're dealing with somebody who's really difficult in the workplace, you are going to feel, you're going to get over it at some point, aren't you? You're going to say, I'm sick of this. I am over it. And it's going to potentially mean that you're taking on more than you should. You're saying yes to things that you shouldn't be saying yes to. And that's going to lead to overwhelm and overwork. And perhaps you are going to react in a way that you don't feel is professional. Now, it's not uncommon, for example, to have leaders come to me and saying, I burst into tears in the meeting, or I lost it when I was in the meeting. And so you might feel like you're an imposter. You might feel like you're letting down the team, and you can feel like you're off course. You're just not doing what you're meant to be doing. So, and this will be familiar to those that have done this training with me before. But that's not how you should be feeling at work. You should feel excited and motivated to come to work each day, not exhausted, stressed, and drained. And if you're dealing with a difficult person, they walk in the room or they come into your space, or if you see the phone ring and you go, oh, that sucks the life out of you. I'm sure you can all probably relate to that. So you shouldn't be feeling like that. You should feel that you have the energy and the motivation to make good choices for the long-term benefit of your team, of your business, and your personal well-being, and not be impacted by energy vampires in the work environment. So as I mentioned to you, you really want to get a pen, because what I'm going to do is go through the different types of people that we encounter in the workplace. I want you to be able to identify them. See if you can identify people that you currently work with, or maybe some people you've worked with in the past. And I'm going to share with you some strategies to be able to deal with these types of people, what's recommended in terms of dealing with these type of people. But if you say to me, oh, Barb, I don't know if it's a bully, a narcissist, a psychopath, or a micromanager, I don't know which one it is. I just know I don't like this person. Well, don't worry, I've got you. I'm also going to give you some really quick tips and tricks that you can apply. When you're stressed, it's really hard to remember things in the moment. You think afterwards, oh, I should have done this and I should have said that. And it's hard to remember things in the moment. So I really want to equip you with some tools and strategies of some things that you can potentially remember in the moment that are going to help you get through some of these difficult situations. And once again, if you've got any comments, experiences you want to share, anything, please pop it in the chat, or any questions that you might have. So hopefully you've got your pen and paper ready. Let's kick it off. Let's look at the first one. I'm going to go through the workplace bully. And how can we identify a workplace bully? I mean, if you look at this character that I've created here for you, they're pretty obvious. They're pretty clear. We can identify them, we can see them, and we know what it feels like. Now, for a bully, what they fear most is a lack of control. They're not confident in their own abilities. They're not able to assert themselves in a way that's professional, that's not aggressive or passive aggressive or sarcastic, and they don't have the capability to negotiate with you or negotiate with others. What is really important with bullying, it's typically repeat behavior. It's a habit that they've formed in how they communicate, and they're not able to change their habits and their behavior. And so you're becoming the recipient of this repeat behavior. So let's have a look at some things that you're going to identify about them. They are motivated by power and control over others. That's because they don't have a sense of control themselves. They don't feel in control. So they're going to lord it over other people. You will see that how they manage their fear and their lack of control is to be a bit of a bulldozer. So they're going to intimidate, humiliate, manipulate, dominate. Look at all those 8 words that I just said then. So that's their go-to to be able to deal with whatever they're not able to control. So you will have heard me talk about knee-jerk reactions in the past. It's just habitual behavior that they have where they just trigger into a response out of instinct because they're not able to control their mouth quite often or their behaviors. They don't have excuse me, a good sense of emotional intelligence. Sometimes bullies will use behavior that's a bit passive. So gossiping, backstabbing, the spreading rumors, excluding, can be quite passive. Excuse me, sorry. So they're insecure, really, at the crux of what's going on for them. It's that fear. It all comes from fear and lack of control. And so consequently, they're reactive. They just react to situations in a way that's not okay. If they're feeling insecure, they may be feeling threatened. So how you will notice the difference between a bully and a narcissist and a psychopath, which is what I'm going to cover off for you, is they're really impulsive, they're really emotive, they wear their heart on their sleeve, so to speak. But the key difference about a bully is that they can be remorseful. They can sometimes recognize that what they've done is not appropriate. They can take feedback. And they can often be willing to listen to what you have to say. So there is hope. There is hope with a bully. So if you find that you're dealing with a bully, it's really important. Some key things to take away here is it's got to be repeat behavior. It's got to be habitual. What you need to do to be able to manage a bully at work is to give feedback. Really important that you make a request of how you would prefer them to behave or communicate with you. Your boundaries need to be really firm. So you need to be direct in your communication and assertive. You don't want to respond with passive aggressive behavior or sarcasm. You need to be very clear in your requests and your communication. And bullies tend to back off when they start to realize that you're not going to tolerate their behavior. And maybe it's childish behavior. So if you're very clear and firm with them and respectful, they tend to back off. You also, I know there's some HR people in this room today, and they will back me on this. You want to document everything. So you want to keep records of incidents, emails, conversations. The more you can back things up in email, even if it's just further to our conversation, here is my request. I agree to do this, you agree to do this. So that kind of thing is really important. It's difficult. Really try hard not to respond emotionally. Try to detach yourself from the emotions and focus on what's actually happening. So if you can just be matter of fact about things, talk about the work, talk about the requests, rather than getting personal and emotive, but particularly if they're doing it to you, and don't engage emotionally, you'll be able to control the environment. Bullies tend to feed off that emotion, the drama. So if you don't feed into that and stay calm and professional, you'll be able to have a little bit more of a controlled conversation. Of course, you want to be able to involve HR or management if this situation escalates, if the behavior persists and is consistent, especially if you've made a request. I really encourage you, if you have the confidence and the capability, to make a request of what you would prefer them to do. And if you've got all your documented evidence, you're able to bring that with you to HR. You may also want to seek allies, but be careful about this. You don't want to start to create gossip and rumor But you want to be able to look at who are the support networks around you. Sometimes having conversations with others makes you realize that it's not just you, that they may be experiencing it, or maybe they're not having the same experience. It's useful to be able to talk to others, but just be careful about that, in the sense that you don't want to be gossipy. That's what you've got to be mindful of. It's better if you can have a request and a direct conversation with a bully, if you feel safe to do so. And the key here is to be able to stand your ground and set the boundaries. That's the most important thing in dealing with a bully. And they tend to go for easy targets. If they know they can easily manipulate you, just becomes habitual. All right, so the next one we're going to look at is the narcissist. So narcissists are, it's a word that everyone likes to throw around these days, and people like to use it, like passive aggressive or narcissist is a term that people often like to use to be able to label somebody. I think what the question we've got here in the chat is, what can you do if there is no evidence? Many bullies ensure the behaviour is not observed. For example, one-on-one conversations and no email. And look, it's a great question, and sometimes people will gaslight, which is, oh, I didn't do that. Oh no, that wasn't me. I never said that. It's if you even if you can keep a record of your conversations, it's still useful, or the behavior. I can say to you, when I go into mediation, even the testimonials are really useful and important. So it doesn't matter that you have evidence in terms of something that's written down, but if you can recount a conversation you had, a mannerism, a behavior, an incident, any of those things that you can bring into the conversation into a mediation is useful. Now, sometimes your recollection of that conversation might be different to their recollection, but it's still useful to have specific examples. It's no good going into a mediation, for example, and saying, I don't like the way you talk to me. The way you speak to me is disrespectful. You need specific examples of when, where, and what it is that they did. So if you've got some kind of record of particular incidents when people did or said something, that's really, really useful. So while it's not evidence you're taking to court, for example, it's not that kind of evidence, it's still an example that you can reference when you need to say, this is an example of the unprofessional communication. So that's why it's useful. And yes, somebody else has said, email back as per our conversation. That's always really, really useful to be able to have that kind of evidence in your emails. Most importantly, making a request. I'll keep coming back to that. With a narcissist, they're a little bit different to a bully. They don't have, it's like they are not equipped with emotional intelligence. They're not aware of what they're actually doing. Bullies also sometimes are not aware, but it's more that they've developed some bad habits. They do have the capability to change. Narcissists, it's a little bit more difficult. It's a deficiency they have. They're not able to practice empathetic leadership. They really struggle. So a narcissist will really struggle with being an effective leader. They have to really work hard to develop these skills. So this is what you're going to see in comparison between narcissist, bully, and psychopath. They really they're ego driven. They're really, really ego driven and motivated by ego. So they're looking for praise all the time. May also be the victim all the time. Oh, it's poor me, poor me. So they will look for validation of their feelings, their emotions, their opinions, and they want the stage. They want superiority. They will be manipulative, they especially emotionally manipulative, and they sometimes will have a sense of arrogance about them, self-absorbed, and they really struggle with empathy. They really struggle to understand how you're feeling, understand your point of view, your opinion, where you're coming from, read between the lines, pick up on things you're saying. They just don't have a radar. They just don't have a radar, and they want the radar all on them. They will typically take credit for other people's work. They will make excuses for their own mistakes, or definitely going to be blame others. Oh, it's not my fault, it's them. Oh, I couldn't do it because of them. They'll twist the story around to be able to validate why things happened. You probably had those people who go, no, that's not what happened. They over exaggerate their achievements, and gaslighting. Now, gaslighting is a really interesting contemporary term that's come into our vocabulary. It actually comes from a movie that came out in the 50s. It was a man, this was when an era, it was based on an era where men could get rid of their wives by validating that they were insane and sending them to an insane asylum. They just wanted to get rid of difficult women. So in this movie, this man wants to get rid of his wife, and he wants her to think she's going mad. So the era that it's set in, the movie, is when they had the lights in the housing, and this is in America and London, I think, was supplied by gas, not by electricity. So they were gas lights. And he would alter the lights so that they would flicker, or they'd be really dark or really bright. And she would say things like, oh my goodness, the lights are flickering. And you go, no, they're not. Oh my God, it's so dark. And you go, no, it's not at all. And so he was making her think she was going mad when she wasn't. It was him. That's where the term gaslighting comes from. It's about people going, oh, don't overreact. It's not that bad. Or you're making a big deal of it. That's kind of gaslighting behavior. Adam said, plenty of examples of gaslighting in society in general past few years. Great topic to discuss and shed light on. Totally, Adam. Gaslighting is a really interesting, really understanding that behavior. A classic one when I'm talking about this is if the classic scenario is where your significant other says to you, if you're going out, if the person says to you, you're not wearing that, are you? And you go, what? What's wrong with that I'm wearing? What are you trying to say about it, what I'm wearing? And they're going, oh, I just asked if you were wearing, if that was what you were wearing. I wasn't trying to say anything. That's a classic kind of gaslighting comment. But that's what you'll see from a narcissist. It's not them in any way. It's all you. Oh no, it's you. It's not me. They will be really sensitive to criticism. How dare you drop them down a notch, remove them from the stage and the limelight. Oh my goodness. How dare you? Narcissistic injury is what it's got here. They will be dismissive and defensive. And this is less about direct bullying, which is harder. It's much more passive and harder to pinpoint. So trying to create evidence on this is really tricky. I don't know what it is, but it just wasn't right. NPD. Not sure what that means, Adam. NPD. Question mark you've got there. Do you want to expand on that in the chat for me, Adam, by what you mean by that? They less about direct bullying, more about self-serving manipulation, and very superficially charming. Oh, narcissistic personality disorder. Yeah, this is quite possibly, Adam. I'm not a psychologist, so this is very surface level observations, but no doubt, Adam, there could definitely be something in that. And I think what you will see, what's really interesting when you start to explore narcissism and psychopathic behavior, there are people that function in the workplace with this dysfunction that is inherently part of who they are, and they really struggle. Like it's kind of for lack of a better word, it's like an emotional disability. They have to work really hard to counteract it because they're just not naturally equipped with empathetic capacity in order to be able to function within a workplace. And that's a real gift. Emotional intelligence is a real power tool that you can utilize in the workplace. So if you've got that, give yourself a pat on the back because it's an incredible tool to be able to use in the workplace. And these guys just don't have it. These people that we're talking about really, really struggle with this. So I'm going to give you some tips. If you know someone that you're working with that's a narcissist, here's some things that you can do. This is a challenging one. Try not to take it personally. They can really hurt you because they just don't have that empathetic radar. So try not to take it on board when they say things. They might belittle you to push themselves up higher, push you down to push them up. And that can really hurt sometimes. If you can recognize that it's about their own insecurities and inabilities. They're not equipped with those skills. It's not necessarily about you. It's about their lack of ability. You can play this against them. So you can use, for lack of a better word, you can use flattery strategically. So if you want to work with them, you can frame ideas in a way that appeals to their ego. So if you do this, it'll make you look great, is kind of the thing that you want to be saying to them. Make it look like it was their idea. There's a whole other topic around that in terms of how you use that, but you kind of use their own narcissism against them. You want to avoid confrontation over really small things. They're not going to admit fault. They're not going to own it. And they may even retaliate because you're not on their side. So you want to really choose your battles with these guys. You want to be able to shine a light a little bit on their behavior. So it's important that you keep your communication, once again, clear and direct, factual, and really avoid getting into emotive or personal conversations with these people because they will use it against you. You just really want to be as factual and clear in your communication with them. They will try to take credit for your work. So you want to increase the opportunity for you to communicate with those around you, with stakeholders, and keep them informed about your contribution. Not fighting for the limelight, but making sure that you can clearly communicate your part in the project or the work. Avoid getting drawn into their games, stay neutral, and protect your professional reputation where possible. Okay, now we get to the psychopath. The psychopath is dangerous in the workplace. I will say that. They are highly manipulative and they're very clever, very cunning, and they are very charming. They are a wolf in sheep's clothing. Yeah, they've got very, very good at climbing the ladder, being manipulative, stepping on people to get what they want. Do you remember that film in the 80s with Michael Douglas where he said the famous line, "Greed is good"? That's a psychopath in the corporate world. So what we know is that approximately 1% of the general population will meet the clinical criteria for a psychopath. What's really scary is this figure is higher in corporate settings. And research has found that 3 to 4% of individuals in senior business roles may exhibit psychopathic traits. Wall Street, 1987. Thank you, Adam. That was the movie. Yeah, you know the one. So think of, and what was his name? Greco or Gecko was the character's name. Yeah, so think him. Now, this was a study that was done in Australia in 2011, and it was focused on white-collar managers for for lack of a better term. 5.76% could be classified as psychopaths, and 10.42% were identified as dysfunctional with psychopathic characteristics. Another study that was done of 261 corporate professionals in the supply chain management industry found that 21% of participants, 21, exhibited clinically significant levels of psychopathic traits. And this figure is comparable to prison populations. Now, to cite that source, that comes from those Australian studies come from psychology.org.au, so an Australian website that cites the research that's done in that area. So unlike bullies, they have absolutely no conscience. You can sometimes appeal to a bully's conscience, but with a psychopath, you can't. There is nothing that is going to inhibit them in the way they behave. They can be ruthless and still sleep at night. So these are some of the things you're going to observe. Their motivation, if we think about the character in Wall Street, it is power. It is control. Absolute power. Donald Trump is probably a psychopath. And absolute sheer joy in that power and potentially of other people's suffering. So they have that vendetta. They want to make someone pay to lord their power. They're going to be very calculated. And while I say cold, on the surface, they will be charming and they have no remorse. So they are very sneaky. They are deceptive, incredibly manipulative. They know how to move the chess pieces to get what they want, and they'll hit you without you even realizing. They like it when they cause harm on somebody else. If another business goes under because of what they've done and it's leveled up their power. So yes, they will be charming to gain trust. Charming is the key word with these guys. They lack, or girls, sorry, I shouldn't be gender specific with these people. They lack empathy. They have no empathy capabilities whatsoever, completely void. It's not on the radar. They never feel guilty. They lack guilt, and they do not have emotional depth. They get very good at faking emotions to get what they want. So they can fake sincerity, care. They can say it to your face and you wouldn't even know it, that they were lying. And they will manipulate others. So what you need to do, here's what you need to do if you're working with a psychopath. You really need to stay under the radar. Do not get in their sights. They see people as pawns in a chess game. The less useful you are to them, the better. You don't want to, sacrificing you does not want to be an option, right? You need to be insignificant to them. Never show any vulnerability. They will exploit any weakness and any emotions. You really need to stick to the facts and policies because they're going to twist words. That you definitely need to keep your communication written and formal. Avoid being in isolation with these people. Avoid private conversations. You want to build a support network so you're not an easy target. And here's the thing. This is the hard thing. If you're working with a psychopath, there's not a lot you can do. If you can exit, do it. Unfortunately, if you're dealing with a full-blown workplace psychopath in a leadership role, leaving might be your safest and best option. You're not going to be able to persuade them to do things differently. So really try to keep your cards close to your chest, have a poker face, unemotional, play the long game. They're really skilled at manipulating, white anting, turning people against each other, sneaky way. So be cautious about engaging in office politics. If they've got someone on side and you disclose to that person, it's possible that they'll feed into the psychopath. They are incredibly dangerous. Yes, it is sad. It is very sad. The reality is there is a small percentage, but some industries have more than others. So, for example, the procurement industry, surprisingly, I don't know why, has more psychopaths, a higher percentage of psychopaths. Oh, and sorry, the key difference between, I didn't show you this, the key difference between a psychopath, a narcissist, and a bully, um, they're more strategic than a bully and less emotionally reactive than a narcissist. At least you can kind of work out what's happening with a narcissist in terms of their emotions. They'll be very dramatic. Psychopath is so much more calculated and they have a long-term game. They're very smart, very, very smart. So just in a nutshell, this is a quick comparison between all of those. If you can see here, a bully is about, their goal is to dominate. They want to have a bit more control. A narcissist wants to get your admiration. A psychopath, they want to control and manipulate. The bully's going to intimidate, public shaming, yell at you, just go off at you and do some really obvious things that you know you don't like. A narcissist is that gaslighting, but they're going to be self-promoting themselves. A psychopath is cold and cruel and deceptive. So a bully is very reactive. You can see their insecurity. A narcissist is going to be very sensitive to criticism and also arrogant. The psychopath is emotionally detached and probably inconsistent in their emotions, I reckon. A bully can have remorse. There is hope with a bully. Narcissist, rarely. A psychopath, you haven't got a hope. You really don't have a hope with those. So if you've had, hopefully you can think about people you've worked with. I hope you haven't had to encounter a psychopath in your work environment. You've probably dealt with a narcissist and you've no doubt dealt with a bully at some point in the workplace. If you are currently in that situation, I've given you some tactics, but I'm going to give you some more. Don't worry, there are some more approaches. I'm going to talk to you now about a micromanager, a little bit different. A micromanager doesn't trust the team. And again, this is a bit like a bully. It comes down to control. And it's not necessarily distrust in you personally. It's more about them in terms of wanting to be in control of their work. A psychopath, their emotions are inconsistent because they are guessing the emotion to show. Spot on. That's it. A psychopath is using emotion, not with authenticity or integrity. It's what they're turning on in the sense of what they think will work. Spot on. That's great. Yeah, so a micromanager, they really feel failure or loss of control. So a micromanager can turn into a bully, right? They feel the pressure of the leadership above them, quite possibly. So they know that the buck stops with them. So they just really want to make sure they've got everything under control. And it's also possible that the micromanager is a perfectionist. They want to get everything perfect and right. So they want to make you get everything perfect and right. So I'm going to give you some tips on how, if you've got a micromanager, some things that you can do. There's a lot more hope with a micromanager. They're lacking leadership. It's a skill there that they're lacking in leadership. So you can help them improve their skills. There's some things that you can do to be able to work with a micromanager. There's a lot more hope with a micromanager. You want to be able to build their trust. So what that means is you want to keep them updated before they ask. They want to know that you've got it. So think of things before they do. Make sure that you are meeting deadlines consistently so they know that you'll do that. You want to show that you're reliable so that they'll worry less. And address potential issues before they come up. Don't surprise them with any issues. So instead of waiting for them to check in, you can send them a summary email. For example, you could say something like, just a quick update, task A is on track for completion by Friday. Let me know if you've got any concerns. And they're going to go, so they don't feel the need to keep checking in with you. Make sure I've said here, get clear expectations or set those clear expectations. So what I mean by that is get very, very clear on what the benchmarks are. What are the goals? What are the priorities? Because they can flip and change and be trying to rein you in all the time, and you're getting pulled from one area to another. So you want to ask questions like, what does success look like for this project? What are we aiming for? Because they'll keep coming up with suggestions about how something can be improved. And let's do this, and let's do this, and make sure you've done this. And can we do this? Have you done this yet? Have you done this? Have you polished that? So also, because they're a perfectionist probably, agree on the check-in points. So otherwise you're going to keep getting interrupted and checked up on. So agree on when those checkpoints are going to be. Suggest some structured updates so that you're not getting those constant check-ins. And confirm your autonomy. So what I mean by that is you want to ask, would you like me to handle this one on my own and check in with you at the end of the day? Or whatever it is, how can you work autonomously? What are they prepared for you to work autonomously on? And you just need some clarity around that. This is about that boundary setting, I guess. And so to give you an example, in negotiating with a micromanager, you might say something like, to keep things efficient, how about I update you every Wednesday instead of daily check-ins? Does that work for you? Let's see what they say. Okay, the next one is manage up with transparency. So what that means is you're supporting them, you're equipping them to be better leaders. You want to be able to keep records of tasks and decisions, to reduce those unnecessary visitations, use status reports, so you can have a dashboard, an Excel spreadsheet, emails, and instead of resisting things, you can use techniques to phrase things in a way that look like it's their idea. For example, a simple one you can do is, what do you think about us doing this, this, and this? Do you think that will work? And if they say, yes, that's great, it'll feel like it's their idea. So an example is, I know you like to stay updated on progress, so I've created a tracker where you can see real-time updates. Do you think that will work? Does that help you? Yeah, that's great. Let's do that. Shift this focus from small detail to the big picture. So what this means is you want to look at things like strategic, the broader goals, the big picture, what are we aiming for, and try and get away from micro tasks. You want to highlight where you've done things. And I know as a leader for myself working with a team, it feels really good for me to know when people are checking things off. I go, oh, great, you've done that, you've done that, you've done that. A bit like what I was saying in that first point. We want to also set professional boundaries. So as I've mentioned previously, you just want to get clear about what those benchmarks are. And if they overstep, then politely redirect them. You've got to be really clear about, what am I doing? What are you doing? Otherwise, they're going to offload stuff to you all the time and then try and control how you do it. Adam has said, micromanagers check the work of their employees under a microscope. They do. And once again, it comes from that insecurity. So if you can show results and if you can have that tracking along, yes, Cecilia, it's exhausting. It is exhausting. It is exhausting. It comes from fear. It comes from them not having a sense of control. So if you can preempt things, I think that really helps. If you can use data that they can check in on at any time so that they're not asking you, like dashboards and project management tools, those things really, really help. Show insights so that you don't need that excessive observation from them, so that they know that you understand the work. All right, so you go, well, oh my goodness, is it a micromanager? Is it a psychopath? What is it that I'm dealing with? So here is some, I'm just going to give you some really quick tips and tricks, right, of how you can deal with someone like this. So what's the trait? What's the solution? So if you've got someone who is dodging blame, okay, they shift the fault to others and avoiding responsibility, what you need to do is keep records, okay? Keep records of your contributions and decisions to protect yourself. If you've got someone who is controlling, they're relentlessly monitoring work, they're stifling your creativity, probably a micromanager, what you need to do, keep them informed. Keep them regularly informed to reduce those micromanagement tendencies. Someone who steals the glory, probably the narcissist. They're going to claim others' success as their own. Oh, there's a typo there, I think. Is that how you spell publicly? That looks wrong. Share your accomplishments publicly. Make sure that you've got capacity in reports and other things to show what you have contributed to. If you've got someone who is intimidating, they're going to use fear to dominate you, probably a bully. You want to stand firm and set boundaries. And I would also say make some requests in there. And you escalate if necessary. This is where you go to HR if you need to. Somebody who is favouring others, they prioritise a select few and they're creating a bit of a division in the group. They've got their little cliques. Demonstrate your value to the broader team. So you want to really work on creating strong relationships with your colleagues and demonstrate the value that you can contribute to their work or how you might be able to help without pushing your way in, of course. All right, let's look at some more. Hope you're finding these helpful. Just some quick things that you can do. You've got a nitpicker. They're constantly picking up flaws without acknowledging any strengths that you have, probably a micromanager. Focus on seeking balanced feedback. So you want to encourage them to give you feedback that is going to help you improve, help you develop your skills, and perhaps put a bit more highlight on some of your successes and achievements and get their feedback on that as well. So you want to encourage them to be a more constructive feedback giver rather than a nitpicker. Self-focus, probably the narcissist. They ignore team priorities to chase their own goals. So what you want to do is align your contributions with their objectives. This is a bit of playing the narcissist, using their narcissism back on them. So you want to see how your contributions are going to help them get what they want, their objectives, but really put a focus on the team impact as well. Trying to help them be better leaders. If you've got someone that's unpredictable, they're constantly changing plans, expectations, boundaries, what you need to do is clarify and confirm priorities. Get it very, very clear in your meetings, back it up in writing or documents. What are our goals? What are our objectives? What's our priorities? Now, Micromanager can also offload lots of things on you. So you may want to be able to say, well, which one comes first or second? I'm at capacity. What do you want me to drop in order to do that? If someone is a bit disconnected, so they're not understanding the needs of the team or the dynamics of the team, you want to focus on sharing the team highlights so that they're becoming more engaged with the team. Give them some feedback on what their team's doing, get some narrative around that so that they engage more with the team and ask questions and become interested a little bit more in what the team's doing. Unprincipled means that they tolerate unethical practice or behaviour in the workplace. So the key here is that this is a really important one. You need to be really, really clear on what you value, what's important to you, how you conduct yourself in the work, and stay true to that, not compromise on that. Really, really tricky. But if you can get clear on that, it helps you to have stability rather than being pulled emotionally in all different directions. Where do you place your integrity? When I work with people in mediation, one of the things that often comes up is about a difference in interpretation of respect and what respect means. So I want you to be very clear on that. If someone's disrespecting you, how? What is it that they're doing? And what's the request you might want to make? And this comes into play around that. So there's a lot of strategies you can take there in order to be able to navigate any of those behaviors. Hope you got some notes from that and got some down. I want to just put a highlight on emotional intelligence in terms of behavioural response. I've talked to you about the narcissist and the psychopath and the bully. The narcissist and the bully tend to be reactive. So something is triggering them. They just have an automated response. And we can do this too. This is that fight or flight response that we've learned. Something will trigger us. We automatically, in our brain, in our thoughts, we have an immediate response, and then we react in a particular way. The challenge when we're dealing with difficult people is that it creates a whole cycle of and creates a difficult environment. So we can sometimes become emotionally reactive in a situation. And I know this is difficult, sorry, but your challenge is to try and create a bit of an intervention in that. So if you can identify what is going to trigger you, what is the language, the behavior, the things that people do that are going to cause a trigger, which you know will automatically make you feel a particular way, think a particular way, want to do something, but instead you're going to have an intervention. You're going to reflect and go, I so want to tell you what I think of you right now, but I'm going to listen to what you're saying and focus on the facts. That's an example, okay? So you have a more conscious response. This is the essence of emotional intelligence. This is about you maintaining your control in that environment by using all of the capacity, all the tools to equip you to manage those situations. If you're going into a difficult conversation, here are some ways that you can prepare, just some key tips for you. And maybe I'm just going to quickly go through these in the interest of time, and take a screenshot or write these down. Make sure that you are prepared. Think about what you want, what you don't want. Really, really important. What are you willing to compromise on? What aren't you going to be willing to compromise on? What are the questions you want to ask? What do you want to get clear on? Make sure there is ample time to have a conversation. You do not want to be rushed, and have some really clear points of discussion, almost like an agenda. That really helps when you want to back that up with an email. As per our meeting, we talked about this, and this. Here were the outcomes. Here were the actions. Here were the commitments. What have we got here? Focusing on your values gives you emotional stability. This is a comment in the chat. Focusing on your values gives you emotional stability because it helps you stay grounded and clear about what matters most to you. When you're aligned with your values, you make decisions that feel right to you, reducing confusion and inner conflict. This makes you more resilient in tough times as you're less swayed by outside pressures and emotions. Plus, you don't rely on external validation to feel good about yourself, which keeps your confidence steady. Overall, living by your values creates a strong inner foundation that helps you to stay calm and balanced no matter what comes your way. Mwah! Poetry. Perfect. Here. I totally endorse your comment. It's a really good summation of how important that values work is in navigating those challenging behaviors. You want to be able to, what's really clear and what's part of that is it's all about energy. People suck the life out of you, right? Words can really hurt. Now, anyone who's in the territory may have heard of Adam Drake. I often talk about him in my training because this guy is a master of being able to protect his energy. He works with kids in detention And it's a really traumatic environment, but he does a lot. How he maintains his stamina and his energy is about really protecting his energy. When he is at work, he is at work. When he goes home, he is home. And one of the things he does, you can see he's got a wristband here, a headband, and a uniform. When he gets home, the first thing he does is take off that uniform and have a shower. Really, really important to him to end the day and not carry that difficult environment into home with him. So there is a number of things that you can do to protect your energy, and I'm going to share those with you. But that's a tip, if you want to write that one down, is being able to use some of those physical things to create a bit of a guard. He also does detaching tools, anchoring tools, grounding tools, visualizations, and all of these help him protect his energy. A lot of it, the science behind that, I know it sounds very ethereal, but there's actually science behind it. What is happening is that we are controlling that primal part of our brain, the amygdala, which fires off in threatening situations to protect us and triggers all these hormonal responses. And the amygdala can be manipulated by visualizations and controlled thought, believe it or not. It's amazing that we can actually use those things as a developed species to control the amygdala, which is totally instinctive and primal. No problem. I understand you have to go. You can watch the rest of this because it will be recorded. Anyone that's having to go early. So the cylinder tool is a really, really powerful tool. This one is used by first responders, people that have to be front of house and deal with difficult people in the workplace. And how it works is that you visualize a cylinder around you. People often refer to white light as being another tool that they use to protect them. But what's actually happening in this situation? So what you do with the cylinder is you imagine the words being fired off by that bully are like spears, and they're hitting this shield around you and they're bouncing off. What it's actually doing is tricking your amygdala. Your amygdala does not know the difference between real threat and a perceived threat. It just knows threat. It just knows that you're experiencing threat, and it will activate the flight or fight response hormones for you to stay alive. Because traditionally, a threat is a threat to your livelihood and your well-being. It's a predator. This is a predator, but it's an emotional predator, probably. So you can use your visualization to trick your amygdala. Your amygdala goes, oh, okay, we're safe in this situation. We have a shield. Look, it doesn't totally take away the anxiety and the stress, but it certainly helps. It lowers it down a couple of notches, and it can really, really help you to be able to detach from the emotion, speak to the facts, and observe what's going on. It's a great tool to be able to practice empathetic leadership in that moment and be able to deal with what's going on. So try it. It's really simple. It's just a visualization. Just imagine this sphere around you. This is why I love Wonder Woman, right? She has her wristbands to protect her from the bullets. The power pose is another one you will have heard of. They say, and the research is a little bit out of, the jury's out about this one. Amy Cuddy is very famous for doing a TED talk about this. You can Google it. But the research shows that if you do a superhero pose in the mirror, look at yourself and observe yourself in that state, it puts you into a courage state, and it increases your testosterone, which is often required in that fight or flight, particularly the fight response. So if you're having to go into a difficult conversation or into a difficult meeting, looking at yourself in a power pose, yes, I've got this, in the mirror, can help generate the hormones that you need to go into a state of courage. And courage is not being absent of fear. Courage is about having the energy to do something despite the fear. Reframing is a really powerful tool in terms of dealing with difficult people, particularly those bullies, I would say, or the micromanagers. You want to be able to interpret what they're saying, change it a little bit, retracting any emotive words in there and putting a positive focus back into it. So, for example, if you've got somebody who is really negative, always complaining, they are complaining about a colleague. Bob's an idiot. I hate working with Bob. He's a fool. He doesn't know what he's doing. He drives me nuts. Lots of emotive language there, right? So if you're the leader, you could say, so you're having some difficulty working with Bob right now. Is that right? That's a way of reframing it and taking the emotional sting out of it. You can use that with the bullies that are saying that sort of thing at you. You're an idiot. You don't know what you're doing. You're a fool. You could be saying to them, what I'm hearing you say is that you don't agree with the decisions or the processes that I'm using in the workplace right now. Is that what you're trying to say with me? The posturing that gives you and reframing that and taking that emotion away from that bully who lacks emotional intelligence. These are some great ones to do if somebody's complaining and objecting to you. Feel, felt, found is a classic sales technique. It's an easy one to remember because it's an alliteration. I understand how you feel. It's really challenging right now. I've felt the same way going through change in my business. What I've found is that if I look at a different perspective or take on some learning, I learn something new. And another great one is when people are ranting about something, you can ask them, what do you want right now? What's going to make this right? What is the appropriate, Crystal's asking, what is the appropriate positive focus in that reframe example, Barbara? Ah, great question. So if somebody is giving you that negative, you're an idiot, you don't know what you're doing. What you can do, Crystal, is what's called a negative affirmation. So you own what's true, but correct what's not. So, for example, Crystal, you could be saying, it's true. I'm making some mistakes along the way. I'm not getting things right. However, I am learning from these opportunities and I'm feeling confident that in a week I will have wrapped my head around what needs to be done and working quicker in doing that. If you want to check in with me, Mr. Boss, in a week, I'd really value any suggestions or recommendations about how I can improve that. That could be a way of turning it into a positive by focusing on your highlights and what you're getting right. Owning what's true in that statement, but rejecting the things that aren't in a positive way. That makes sense. So, yes, someone is ranting about all the things that are wrong. They're not happy. I'm going to take this higher. Da, 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 da. Sometimes it's useful just to go, what's going to make this right for you? If they're really angry about something, essentially what you want to be able to say, and don't use this language, but it's, what do you want from me? What do you want me to do? How can I make good on this? How can I make this right? That can be sometimes a useful, if you can form some language around that. How can I make this right for you is a really powerful tool because then people feel heard. So we can also use positive language such as, I love you know how. You know how's a great way to start a difficult conversation. If you don't know where to start, you want to approach something a bit tricky, just remember you know how. It's a question that's engaging them in the conversation. It's getting very clear about what you want to talk about. And it also establishes if they're aware of what you're about to present. You know how you called me a grey-haired nag in the meeting yesterday? They might say, oh, yeah, sorry about that. Or they might say, did I? Did I say that? Yes, actually you did. And then putting in a request about what you would prefer them to say. Thanks for sharing. One of my favorite ones. I love this tool. So easy to remember because when somebody comes at us with criticisms, shoulds and shouldn'ts, you should do this. You shouldn't do this. You should have done this. You shouldn't have done that, right? we have two responses. We typically want to go into defense. Oh, well, hang on a minute. I had to do that because of blah, 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 blah. Or, oh my goodness, you're so right. Oh, I'm such a fool. I'm so sorry. So we either go into defense and aggression or apologetic and passive. Saying thanks for sharing is beautiful because it neutralizes and it also acknowledges and appreciates the person that's speaking. So I hear you. Thank you for your thoughts. But essentially, what you're saying is, I'm not taking that any further. And so you can say, thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing. If they keep going, eventually they'll stop. They'll run out. They know you've heard what they're saying. You may also wish to say, thanks for sharing. And we're complete on this now. I don't think we need to keep revisiting this or talking about this topic. I feel we're complete on this now. It just neutralizes it. Yes, Cecilia said, I haven't thought of it that way before. You're acknowledging their view, but neither agree or disagree with them. That's right. It's very neutral. It's so powerful. I love it. And so simple. So simple to remember in the moment, right? You can be boiling. Just go, thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing your thoughts on that. You don't want to be sarcastic. You don't want to go, thanks for sharing. Yes, and is another one that I love. I want you to start observing how often you use but in your language and start using yes, and. So if someone says, we need to have our reports coming out more regularly. Yes, and we also need to ensure they're accurate. So we might need to change the way we are collating the information. So rather than going, yes, but I need to collate all the information before I can get them out on time, yes, and is more collaborative and less resistant. That sounds like Mrs. Brown. That's nice. Yeah. We've got to be careful that we don't put sarcasm into our language. So here's some things. These are really simple, aren't they? Really simple. You don't have to think about all of the mastery of the language that I've shown you. Start a difficult conversation with you know how. That's all you have to remember. The rest will roll off your tongue. Thanks for sharing. And listen to how often you say but. And try and use and instead of but in your language. Just try that. And you'll find that you have more negotiating conversations. Okay, we've done really well in the timeline. I've rushed through those last lot of tips and tricks for you. You've asked some great questions so far. I'm going to give you some tools and things that you can engage with and take away from today. Some further things you can do. Some of them are free, some of them paid, whatever. Just want to give you some more resources that you can use. So hopefully you've got your pen ready. Here's the first one. Here is, you can write down this URL here. It is also on my website. This is a free scorecard assessment you can do. You simply answer 25 questions and it will give you a customized report that rates you against 5 key principles of resilient leadership. The things that we've identified through years of coaching that are the foundations of successful leadership. So this is free assessment and you're welcome to take it. And if afterwards you want to, I'll send you a message afterwards if you want to go through that scorecard and come up with some strategies to be able to apply that knowledge, you can as well. There are also some courses you'll find some free courses on the website. So there are some very traditional courses where you go through lessons and there's some learnings, but there's also some free 7-day challenges as well. So the goal is to do something each day for 7 days to achieve a particular outcome. There's 3 of those that are free. These are some of the paid courses that you can do right now. So we're working on getting more and more online, but these are self-directed learning that you can do that are on our website, but there's lots of free ones as well. So you go and have a look at those. We're also launching in April. We will be kicking off, this is currently in pilot at the moment. where people are testing this for me. We're launching this program for regional leaders. So Darwin, this is you. You are classified as regional, but this is particularly for women who are working in positions of leadership. They feel like they're in a bit of a fishbowl. Everybody's watching what they're doing, and they don't want to show any vulnerability because they feel like they'll look unprofessional. But a lot of what we talked about today in terms of values, boundaries, being able to manage performance of people, being able to assert yourself, negotiate, be more effective. And this is designed to be a 90-day sprint, so intensive learning, 3-hour workshops, facilitated coaching, group mastermind, an online portal with action steps and accountability. So this is something, if you're interested, let me know. The other thing is you are welcome to have a strategy session with me, free, no sales, no charge. So if some things have come up for you today and you want to talk them through, please take advantage of it. Dane will be sending out an email with a recording and with a link for you to be able to book in if you want to. There's my mobile number. Write it down if you want. Send me a text message and I'll send you a link to where you can book in a strategy session. So you're more than welcome to take advantage of that. I want you to be able to apply this learning. I really want you to be able to apply the learning, so make use of it. The next webinar, Dame, could you please, I asked Dame to prepare this for me. Could you drop a link in the chat? Oh, look, she's standing by, ready to go. If you want to, this is the next webinar that I'm going to be doing. This is based on lots of coaching, lots of learning. It's an hour. Once again, it's be a bit over an hour, but I'm taking you through the principles of time management and then how to apply that into Microsoft Outlook, how you can use those principles. I'm not going to be doing the step-by-step technical stuff. I'll just be showing you the features that exist. This is a free webinar, so you can go off and apply those things if you want to. I know some people at CDU have done my one-day workshop on this. There's also an online course on this, but you get to do this for free and see the basics of what it is that I'm teaching people in that intensive coaching, training, courses, etc. So this is great value. And the reason it's called Increase Your Billable Hours, it's great for lawyers, consultants, etc., whose time is money, but they're spending too much time doing stuff that's not creating an impact. So it doesn't matter if you're not a consultant or a business owner, it's if you need to be more effective in what you're doing and creating bigger impact with the least amount of time and effort, then this is the theory of this is what's going to really help you. We waste about 2 hours a day in managing our emails. 2 hours a day is 10 hours a week. 10 hours a week is 12 weeks a year. That's how much we waste. So if you think about that in terms of money, that's a lot of money that's on the table. Think what you could do with that time. So this webinar will just take you through, as I said, the principles of that, the features that I'm teaching people how to use within Outlook. So you've got the link in there if you want to register for that. You'll get an email about that one as well. So how are we going for time? Great. I've got an extra, if you want to, an extra 15 minutes to answer any questions you may have about today. This is a QR code and a URL for Google reviews. It's really hard in my industry to get people to give me a review on Google. So if you feel inspired, I'd be so appreciative. Everyone always gives a Google review about a restaurant or a gym or a theatre or something, you know, a venue, but never about people that provide skills, consultancies. It's really hard. So if you feel inspired, I'd be so appreciative if you want to give me a Google review. I'm always sharing free stuff. So if you don't want to do webinars, there's always stuff on social media in my Facebook groups. Thanks, Janine. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, etc. If you want to be able to tap into some of the free resources. But now I'm available to you, and I'm going to stay here to answer any questions that you might have about anything that I've shared with you today. You are most welcome now to open up your mic if you want to, or you can use the hand feature. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. You can use the Zoom put up your hand feature if you want to ask a question. Or just open your mic or pop something into the chat. Has anyone had a challenging situation where they're not sure what they could have done better or differently? What could they have done in that situation, if you feel comfortable to share? That's all right. A lot of people have to head off. Look, I'm really appreciative for those that's been able to stay.
I think
Kylie,
I
yeah,
think the thing I probably could have done better, understanding these tools a bit more and understanding these situations a bit more, is to actually sort of act a bit more quickly and use the tools more quickly. When the behaviors started happening, I kind of didn't realize how big a picture it was, and so I didn't act quick enough and didn't really kind of have these tools at the time. So I do now because I've had lots of practice.
yeah.
But yeah, at the time, I think that's what we could do differently is kind of get more aware of this early on, recognize it early on, and act early on.
Yeah. And I concur, Kylie. I see quite often what I see as a mediator is things fester and they build and they compound. And what grows with that is the assumptions that we make. We start to form beliefs about the other people and their intentions, and it's not always accurate. Whereas if we just addressed it very, very early on, and I think it's about being able to make requests, being very clear with you and saying, can you please not refer to me that way? Can you not speak to me like that? And I'm being very blunt in that, but that's the essence of it, is letting people know. Thank you. Crystal's asking for the link for the Google review. Bear with me, Crystal, and I will just quickly grab that. I don't know that Dane will have access for it. I'm just going to quickly copy it. Thank you, Kylie. That is really beautiful observation. And I hope it's reaffirming for people to know that it's a learning process. We learn through these mistakes. We learn through those bad experiences about what we could do differently. I will also say we all wish we could go, oh, wish I'd said this. I wish I'd done that in the moment. It is okay to revisit conversations as well. So, for example, to be able to say to somebody, yesterday when you said this, I want to address that with you now. Or last week in this meeting, I'm not sure if you're aware, but you said this, and I felt uncomfortable in that moment. So it's okay to revisit things afterwards rather than trying to think in the moment. Adam has said, it appears psychopath and narcissistic persons are always popular or being favorites in their bosses' opinions. Not sure whether this is correct. They steal all the energy, Adam. And unfortunately, what the research has shown is that organizations, I hate to say this, a lot of organizations don't deal with conflict well, which is why I'm a mediator, why I do mediations. People tend to avoid conflict. So quite often what happens is the person who is being bullied ends up leaving. And the bully ends up being more manipulative and gaining power and keep moving and keep working. And the behaviors don't get addressed, and the culture that's being cultivated in the workplace doesn't get addressed. And it is detrimental for those organizations. They lose people, they lose money, they lose integrity, they lose consistency, they lose productivity, they lose profit. Unfortunately, the squeakiest wheel attracts the most attention in these situations. Psychopaths end up being, they kill people along the way to get to where they want. They throw people under the bus to get to where they want, up the ranks. You have to go, Kylie. Thank you. I'm not sure if it's the same Kylie. A few people are heading off. That's okay. You've got the crux of the information. Anybody else got any thoughts, comments, questions?
Barbara, it's the other Kylie here, not the one that left.
Yeah.
Um, I have not encountered this in my work, but my husband and I were really unfortunate enough to have a psychopath in our lives at one stage. And I can attest to the fact that they are exceptionally charming, so
Yes.
charming. They're amazing. Yeah.
Yes.
And this person insinuated himself into my husband's life at a moment of vulnerability, became his closest friend, and then totally threw him under the bus in a work scenario after manipulating a position into that workplace.
Yes.
Unbelievable. And you would never see it coming. Seriously,
Yes.
they're amazingly charming. Yeah.
There's a great TED talk by an Australian researcher who researches psychopaths in the workplace. And he said when he first started that work and he was going to engage with psychopaths, he thought they were going to be this evil character and very obviously evil. And they weren't. He said they were incredibly charming, very, very charming. So, yes, they're so manipulative and so clever. That's why they're dangerous. And they rally people, they enlist people around them who become their minions, become their ears, do the dirty work for them. Yeah. And then they will sacrifice them if they need to. Yeah, there's the comment is it's refreshing to hear that very little can be done against a psychopath. I wish I had not engaged. I won a battle when I raised it, but lost the war and a few years of my sanity. Yeah, it's so dangerous to your well-being. This should be in the workplace induction instead of if you raise it, it will be dealt with and we will look after you. Yeah, I wonder if more can be done to try and identify psychopaths in the recruitment process. Unfortunately, they're so manipulative. I don't think there is. They know what to say to get what they want, and they get better and better at it. I have listened to an interesting podcast with a psychopath who, this woman, she was so interesting, but how she had to really work with her psychopathic tendency. She knew she was a psychopath. She was identified as one. And she was saying as a teenager that she used to break into people's houses and take things, not because she needed anything, but because she could, because she wanted to exert power. And there was one time, and the interviewer was saying, weren't you terrified of being caught? And she went, not really. There was one time when the homeowners rocked up and were coming through the front door, and I was in the house and I just walked past them. Like, yeah, the nonchalant, like, what are you going to do about it kind of thing. It's like this very little care or guilt, no guilt. They can sleep at night. Absolutely no guilt about what they're doing. No worries, Kylie. Thank you. Thanks for participating. All righty. Thank you for sharing. I'm glad that you're getting some value from this information. If you want to ask me something, you may not, well, I know this is a very public space and we are being recorded. If there's a question you want to ask me about something that's going on at work for you right now, please feel free to book in a strategy session and I will work with you to come up with some strategies. But I must be very clear. I'm a workplace mediator and I'm a coach. I'm not a counselor. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a HR professional and I'm not a lawyer. Okay. So I'm going to give you some conflict management tools and strategies and communication tools if you do book in a time with me. So feel free
Excellent
to do that.
session.
Yeah.
Excellent session, Barb.
Thanks, Cecilia.
Just curious, when you're dealing with such extreme characters like a psychopath or narcissist, would you recommend focusing more on the resilience skills or communication skills? Which would take priority?
That's a great question. Um, I would focus on the resilience personally.
Resilience first, build the resilience, and then add on the the communication skills.
Because you are like that cylinder tool,
Mm.
you need to be able to calm the hormones, calm the response, be conscious, and then apply the communication. You can't do it the other way around, because when you're in a
Yes.
stress state, you're not going to remember those things that I've given you. It's very hard to remember them. You'll say afterwards, oh, I know this. Why didn't I say this? But when you're in a stress response, you can't. It's really, really
Exactly. Yeah.
hard. So
Yeah.
building the resilience techniques to be able to roll with those verbal punches will then give you the capacity to apply the communication skills.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I would suggest.
Mm.
Good question. Great question. All right. Are there any others?
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Cecilia. Thank you. How's that HR team going in there? I can still see them in the boardroom nattering away. All right. I'm going to leave it here now because I don't think there are any more questions. But thank you all for the questions, for the feedback, for the comments. Really great to have that insight. Thank you for contributing. Here if you need me. And I look forward to catching up with you offline or at the next webinar. Have a great day.